I'm going to say I think is one of the most ridiculous websites, not websites, one of the most ridiculous lawsuits that I've seen in a really long time. Valve is currently being sued by customers in the United Kingdom for unfair pricing, which when you buy games on Steam, like one of the great benefits of buying games on Steam is they're constantly really freaking cheap. Like it's cheap to buy games on Steam. And apparently they're being sued. We've talked about this before. I guess Valve had until now to try and, stop it. But now it is going to trial, apparently. And it says here, Valve's legal representatives have tried to prevent the case from going to trial, citing several reasons. These include a claim that Shotbolt had not put forward an adequate methodology for comparing Steam's transaction commissions to the alleged increased prices. As was spotted by Reuters, the Competition Appeal for Tribunal confirmed on January 26, 2026, that the lawsuit will continue as a CPO on an opt-out basis. CPO means it's a collective proceedings order, where basically, I forget what it's called in the US, but it's like kind of like class action. It's kind of like a class action lawsuit, I guess. But basically, they're saying Steam is overcharging everybody for video games because they don't let you sell your game on other websites for cheaper than you sell them on Steam. But that's because you're using Steam keys. So like, if let's say that Carrie wants to be a reseller, he buys a Steam key, or he's a game maker, right? Not a reseller. He's a game maker, and he uses a Steam key and then sells it on a different website, which happens all the time. If he undercuts Steam on that, that's a bad deal for Steam. And so I would understand why they would try and get in the way of that. It doesn't make sense. Like now, if Carrie is just selling his game, not using a Steam key on some other website, he can set whatever price he wants. What do you guys think about this lawsuit? Because now it looks like it's moving forward. Do you guys have any reaction to this, Russ?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of layers to this. Part of the lawsuit also talks about the fact that Steam takes 30%, whereas Microsoft and Epic Game Store are 12%, and even Epic Game Store apparently doesn't start even charging you that commission until you reach $1 million in revenue. So I think that's part of it too, is that they're saying that this is unfair, the 30% cut there. And yeah, I mean, that's always, that's one of the decisions that someone has to make as a game developer, is whether or not they want to go that route or somewhere else, and it's the same thing with like iOS and the Apple Store and everything else, But then, yeah, like this idea of them having, what do they call that? The platform parity obligation, right? This idea that if they're going to be selling it elsewhere, it's got to be kind of at a same price or similar price, as opposed to hosting it somewhere else and then deeply discounting it. And I don't know enough about it to have like a strong opinion about it. For me, it's just as an end user, I've always been pretty happy with Steam in their sales and everything else. It's a great system for me as a gamer. I just put all my games on my wish list. I wait till they're at a good price. If I really get a hankering for a game, then maybe I'll go and look at like Green Man Gaming or one of those other ones and see if I can get it for a little bit cheaper. But otherwise, I'm casual enough that I can just wait for that. So yeah, I don't have a lot of huge opinions in this matter, but I'm sure Carrie does.
Carrie?
So, yeah, all right. We talk about this a lot of times, and I was actually in the background, like looking up Alan Wake 2 because it just like popped in my head. So the crux of this argument, right, is that on Steam they're forcing this price parity on other stores, even if they sell other stores. It is worth noting that when a dev or a publisher generates a Steam key, Valve takes 0% of that. So they can leverage other stores and Valve gets diddly. Not a bunch of sales happen there, not the majority of sales, but it still is nothing. So there's a 0% cut for Valve in that respect. And what Valve is saying, or at least what the allegedly is saying, is that there is this term of like they are the moving, like they are the foundation of what the price should be. Don't deviate too far from this, or else you might find yourself somewhere in not a great place. So there's the, if that is happening, if that's a problem, okay, that's what I think a lot of people kind of get up in arms about rather than anything else. But when you talk about like pricing, Alan Wake 2 was only on Epic Game Store, and I don't know if that had much bigger sales compared to like Xbox and PlayStation. And is Xbox and PlayStation also causing this price parity of like, hey, don't actually make your game too cheap on other platforms because, or else. Which I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm trying to look at the price history of Alan Wake 2 because it was and still is. Right? Alan Wake 2 hasn't come out on Steam yet.
I don't think so. I've been waiting for it. My son just finished it the other day.
No, it hasn't yet. Yeah.
Yeah,
I just searched for it and it's not on there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm looking. All right, so key shops I don't care about, but like, let's see. The cheapest price it was on Epic Game Store for Alan Wake 2 was $15 during, I guess,
That's a good deal.
July.
That sounds pretty affordable.
Yeah, and then Epic. Oh, stop going to the other one. Epic. Why is it showing me Green Man Gaming? Green Man Gaming had it for $50. It is hard to follow this chart. I want to turn off the key shop. Here we go. Thank goodness. Okay, so Green Man Gaming. I don't want to see Green Man Gaming. Official store.
Well, Green Man Gaming counts, right? Because that's part of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's
Right,
another,
yeah,
it's
so-
another store.
Yeah, they are another store, and everything like so. Green Man Gaming also does not look like they've ever competed better than Epic Game Store in terms of pricing. They've always been higher in price than Epic Game Store, which I don't know if anyone cares about that. But anyway, the thing is like since Epic is charging so little, what is the where is the problem? Is it the consumers that are saying, if the consumers are like, hey, you're charging too much because of this 30%, then the 12% should be making the game generally cheaper, when I don't believe that's the case. So I have no idea what this lawsuit is, but if the lawsuit is that they're complaining about too high prices, I don't know that they have a leg to stand on when you can point to Alan Wake 2 as something that isn't more affordable. But that's from that angle, not so much from the actual problem of like Valve stepping in and ambiguously threatening something, which is a whole other thing, which I think Rich might want to talk about.
This is why I put it in the show notes,
Yeah.
is because you guys have historically fought about it. So I was hoping that there would be some fisticuffs here.
Well, I think Carrie and I are always end up closer on this. I think really
Yes.
my problem is how many people are up in arms about this, right? Because if it's a fickle lawsuit, right, will determine that'll be determined. If it is a lawsuit with merit, that will likely be determined. I think, so like my take is I do consider myself a consumer advocate. I, like many others, I hold Steam in a super high regard. But I do think all corporations, and like probably especially market dominators like Valve, regardless of how they became to be market dominators, deserve scrutiny. That doesn't mean that like they should automatically be penalized for being market dominators. They just deserve scrutiny. Like we as consumers and as municipalities should be taking a close look at what's happening there, right? So I think when I say like people are up in arms, I think maybe what they fear is like Valve is going to be broken up, right? Like people are coming for Valve, Epic Game Store, all of these like conspiracies that Tencent, right? Like there are these large corporations that are coming for Valve. And I think the opposite is true with regard to legal pressure and Valve, right? Like it's not that when we've seen legal pressure happen before, it's not that Valve has had to be broken up or anything like that. It's that Steam has gotten better, right? So in 2014, when Australian laws required refunds for digital purchases and there was, legal action that was taken, Steam got better because of it and introduced refunds in 2015. There was legal action in Netherlands and Belgium with regard to loot boxes, and Valve complied only regionally, but they complied, right? And so that made it better for consumers. So I think competition isn't the only way to make like companies better. And unfortunately, we have a complete dearth of competition in the PC marketplace, but it's not the only way to make companies better. It is also consumer advocacy and legal action. And so I'll leave it with this basically. If they really do have price parity enforcement, I think we want that to be investigated properly. And if they really do have price parity enforcement, I think I deserve my $30 to $60 for buying 2,000 Steam games, right? Like if they really do, if they really do have it, give me my $30 because that's what it comes out to. It comes to about $30 to $60 per consumer. By the way, if you've noticed that Humble bundles have gotten worse over the years, then you may want to consider that may be due to price parity.
Interesting. I really like that you brought up the return thing, because a lot of the people who tend to watch this channel and who tend to watch your channel, Rich, they're ride or die Steam. They're like, they can do no wrong. And they're like, look at Steam's return policy. It's awesome. Yes, it's awesome because they had to follow the law that was made. Like they had to. It forced them to do that. And that's great that they did that. It made the product better. And like you're saying, yes, there are other ways to like competition can force companies to do better, but there just isn't anybody that has the ability to compete with Steam right now. Epic has tried. I hesitate to say that they've tried real hard, but they've thrown money at the problem, but they haven't really tried to compete with Steam. And I think that we need more competition. And so people are always hear me say really great things about Valve. Oh, by the way, you brought up the loot boxes. Valve complied, but then they did another loot boxy thing that I can't remember exactly what it was, where it was like the way that they did it was they were skirting around the law. Yep, and they were following the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What game am I thinking of? Was that Dota?
No, I think Dota. It was both CSGO and Dota 2, but I think it was a different like legal pressure, and I think that was a more global response, or maybe a U.S. response, whereas the one I'm referring to was Netherlands and Belgium specifically. But that did happen, and I don't have the specifics offhand, but I do recognize that.
But the reason I was bringing it up is basically because, you know what? The reason I say nice things about Valve most of the time is because most of the time they do some pretty great stuff, but sometimes they don't. And we got to hold their feet to the fire in those cases too. Now, this particular lawsuit, I don't know if it's valid or not. It just seems like somebody who's just like, see that big guy over there? I'm going to see if I can just poke him. And that's what this lawsuit feels like to me, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I did, by the way, just something that probably should be noted when it comes to like, what about this? What about this? This same legal firm, as I understand it, Melberg London, is also suing Sony, and they sued Sony first. It's just ongoing, right? So like it's, and I think it's for a similar, like, you know, prices are too expensive sort of thing, like where like it could be cheaper if it wasn't, the 30% commission. I don't know the specifics, but that was my understanding based on my cursory look over that. And then also, I think that's interesting. You mentioned, like, you know, this potential person that, like, by the way, this person, I don't know much about them, Vicky Shotbolt, but they have been trashed over the internet. Like I subscribe to like Valve Reddit, like on my RSS feed, Steam Deck Reddit on my RSS feed, and some people have said some really nasty things. I did look up the consumer advocacy group that she's a part of and represents Parent Zone. And I was worried that when I looked that up, it was going to look a lot like Collective Shout, which was
right. That's what I was just thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. And Collective Shout, like I look at that website and so much stuff that I dislike, it makes me cringe. Parent Zone is nothing like that. Parent Zone seems like values that I align with. Again, based on a cursory glance of like, oh, we would like better ratings for children that take into account things like loot boxes, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I like what I saw on my, I'll say 5 minutes on the site.
So there's a part of me. So I'm going to go back. I am very much in favor of Valve for a lot of reasons, and I think I come back to. So I understand where we're coming from this, but there's also like the international community, people from Argentina, Russia, Mexico. There are regional pricing that customers in those regions absolutely love. That is almost Valve dominant that they do. Where Valve, when you're putting games on there, they're like, "Hey, we will handle pricing for you automatically in these regions to help you sell your game better, to actually make them." Prices that people will pay in these regions, and then some companies are like, actually no, make it $50 US, but like in Argentina, they're like, oh, it's $1 bazillion. I'll never buy that game. And Valve does a really good job there, and which is why you have such strong support from a lot of individuals from those regions. Also, Family Game Share got way better.
Oh, yeah.
Recently, so that's like way more awesome. One quick side note: if you're ever taking a look at like the games that are excluded from Steam Family Share, it's not a whole bunch. It's some like the bigger players that you may recognize. But one thing that I found absolutely hilarious, and I don't know if it's just a joke, but Papers, Please is not allowed.
You think it's like
where?
You think it's like Ludo narrative, like Harmony?
Yeah, like you cannot Steam Family Share Papers, Please at all. It's excluded
without proper identification.
Just at all. Like you have to buy. Like my son was like, hey, because I share my Steam library with him, and he's like, oh, I want to play Papers, Please. I'm like, yeah, sure, go ahead. It's in my library. Just go install it. He's like, I don't see it. And I was like, what? And I'm like, all indie games are available. Like no one does this. And sure enough, Papers, Please. And I'm like, this is like some meta joke here. There's no way.
I will say there was like another indie game that I was similarly baffled by. I don't remember, so I don't want to say what I think it is just in case. But like I remember I contacted that person. They were like, yeah, that it was a setting that was set by mistake or set by default or something like that, and they happily changed it. So maybe it was a mistake.
There's a part of me that doesn't believe that's the case. I almost feel like that's not anyway. It's pretty funny, but there's like things like Steam Family Share. But before we pivot off this conversation, I think the one thing that I would like to ask all of you is, let's say Valve says, hey, you know what? Actually, we're not gonna charge you anything unless you make $1 million. So indie game devs, everything's gonna be even more awesome for you. Also, we're only gonna do 12%, right? People are already saying Steam is a monopoly. Let's say Valve just makes it even better. Are they gonna be like, man, you guys are even more of a monopoly? I'm just even more furious. How can you be even better? Like, at what point do like, oh well, they only charge 12%? There's just gonna be people that are upset that they are the dominant thing, and making them more dominant is not going to make them more happy.
Yeah, I think, are there always going to be people that are going to be upset? 100%. And like some of the things that you're saying are valid defenses, right? Like maybe it is a bad deal for Valve to offer Steam keys for free. Maybe that's just a bad business deal that like shouldn't be held up. And I just think that is a valid defense for their legal team to make in court. Right? and let the court decide. But that said, it's also like they're asymptotically, right? Like you can't get much closer to a monopoly than they already are, right, in terms of what we're talking about. Like we were just talking about Epic having GOG as a launcher, not to mention all the free games you got via Epic and GOG. And in the same breath, we didn't say it, but we know it. You probably haven't played any of those games. And I play Steam daily, and I face the same things, right? Like I have plenty of GOG games, Epic games. I never play them. I play on Steam, and I don't really have any intention to move away from Steam. I am a captive audience as far as that's concerned, which I think is even more reason why, like, if there is something there, it should be investigated. That's just my feeling.
That's fair. Well, let us know what you guys think in the comment section down below. That like button. Do you think that this lawsuit has merit? Do you want to get your $30 to $60, or do you think that, you know what, I don't really care? It just, yeah, Carrie.
What if instead of $30 and $60 they just gave you Half-Life 3?
I mean,
I
that
mean,
just
Just absolved them.
Get him right now. I want it.
it would work. It would work.
You're absolved.
Settle out of court, Valve.
Wait, do you guys think that we could sue Valve to get them to release Half-Life 3?
Yeah,
The four of us. Yeah, we're gonna do
yeah.
that.
We'll sue them. All right,
Nerd
we're
Nest
taking
versus Valve.
You told us half a story, and we have been waiting to find out what happens after that cliffhanger for 20 years. I want my game. Release it now or pay me.
Yeah, they've
There you
been
go.
schadenfreudenly enriched by not giving us the rest of the story. They're over there all happy and giggling like, look at them. They don't have the rest of the story. This makes me so happy.
So
That'll be all right.
I'm imagining this like courtroom drama, and like we're in court, they're in court, right? And they're holding up for the witness or whatever. They're like, hey, evidence here. Russ Crandall never even finished Half-Life 2 Episode 2 on Steam. We can see it right here. And I'm gonna be like, no,
I have the
I played it on
achievements."
Xbox.
I will totally just be in this position so that when the courtroom like artist will have me, I want to be like that dude that's like this. Like that, right? This one where pointing to my hand. Put it in my hand. Where is it?
My hand.
Can't
All
wait
right,
to see that courtroom art.
Exactly. Hey, if any of you guys can draw, send us pictures of Carrie doing that pose.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. Perfect.